Welcome back, everyone, to another day in the life of Sandy and Edie. Though that's actually kind of sad because if this is our life every day. Anyways, today I thought I would share another story with you about medical things, issues that I've had, and how I've dealt with them. This is a pretty common issue, actually. I think it was about 2010. I started feeling pains over here on the right side of my body, around my ribs, and it would go around into my back, and it was very uncomfortable. Fortunately, it wasn't anything that it wasn't so bad pain that I couldn't handle it, but it does get that way for some people. And I figured that I probably had gallstones, and I finally went to a doctor and did the test and everything. Sure enough, I had gallstones. So he told me, the doctor, that I needed to get it out, and he referred me to a surgeon, and that if I didn't get it out, that eventually I would end up in an emergency room, because that's how bad the pain would get, that I wouldn't be able to deal with it on my own. So I left there, and this is still in all the midst of us learning whatever we could about health and nutrition, and we still hadn't learned everything we know now. We still have a long way to go, but I started studying because I thought, if stones can form, why can't they dissolve? Why do I have to have an entire organ removed from my body? And it wasn't that I wouldn't have done it, but I wanted to know other ways of getting it done. And in the process, I stumbled across a blog by a man named Stan Gardner. At the time, he was in Ohio. He's a medical doctor and a holistic healer. He combines both of them. Since then, he's moved to Sandy, Utah, and he maintains a blog and still works in a wellness center where he practices more holistic, but he still has a medical background. I think he did that for 10 or 15 years. And in his blog, I was looking for things on gallstones. He even said, a sick gallbladder is better than no gallbladder. And at the time, there were studies that said that people who had their gallbladder out were more likely to develop, and I never can remember if it's colon or bowel cancer, and it was like a 30 to 40% higher risk. Now, I was doing some more research not too long ago to see if that was still true, and the risk actually has gone down quite a bit according to the newer studies that you're not at that high of a risk for cancer. But I will tell you that the one thing that does happen to people who get their gallbladder removed, and not all of them, but I do know people who have this problem, that they have what's called dumping syndrome, which means that when they eat, and they never know when it will be or what triggers it, but all of a sudden they will have to run to the restroom. I mean, it is that fast, and it is on the verge of causing an accident, let's just say. And so I didn't want all that in my life. If I could figure out a different way to combat my stones, I still believe there was a way to dissolve them. And there are, if you look online, there are different recommendations. I don't know if they all work or not. I didn't do most of them. But what I found out was there's an herb called Chancapidra, Chancapidra. And it is, I believe, a Spanish herb, and it literally translates to stone breaker, and people mainly use it for kidney stones. But it also can work on gallstones, so I decided to give it a whirl and see what happened. And so I started taking them, and I haven't had any inkling of a gallstone in several years. I have no pain. It's never acted back up. I've never had my gallbladder removed. I've just really believe that if you can save your organs, that you should. And that, we're too quick sometimes to go in and cut out things just because they're bothering us. Now, having said all that, the disclaimer is I'm not a doctor. I have no medical background. You do your own research. This may or may not work for you. Go ahead and research Chancapidra and see. There are other things too. I've got another one called Stone Free that comes from another kind of herbal lab, and you can check that out too, that people also use. We have a friend here in town who suffers constantly from kidney stones, and we went in to visit her one day, and she was actually in tears. Her kidney stones were so bad, so we ran home and got a bottle of this and took it to her, and she swears by it, and she lives with it in her office all day long and takes it. And her family who, it must be a genetic thing, because I know her brother suffers from them too, and he even called her one day and said, do you have anything to relieve gallstones? She says, yes, I'll bring it to you, but you have to get it back to me because I live on these things. So now with all of that, this is a brand we've been using, but recently I started doing more research since our holistic healer, voodoo doctor visit last year, and she turned us on to that there are different brands of herbs that are better than others. And in this case, this one has as a ingredient silica, which is also a main constituent in sand. You want to stay away from silica. So once these are gone, of course, you know, because I do everything over and above, I bought a bunch of these, and so I've still got a bunch on hand. And they must work because they're helping our friend with her kidney stones, and they're certainly, I have no gallstone pain to speak of. But I think you can get something more, even more natural. You should always get something with the fewest additives or fewest ingredients possible, and go for as natural as possible, even in your herbs. One of the problems with these that are mixed like this is that they end up being mostly the leaves and stems and not the whole plant. So evidently this works, either that or it makes us think it works for our friend who's taking it for kidney stones, and me for gallstones. But as I got looking at this, and I didn't know any better until I started doing more research, the ingredients actually do say Chancapedra, and then in parentheses leaves and stems. So if you can imagine what this does for me, wait till you get the real thing. And I've been looking at other alternatives of real full-on Chancapedra, but that's just a tip from us. You do your own research. Obviously you need to consult with your doctor, and they know more about medicine than I do, which isn't hard. And find out what works for you. But I think the point of our message today is just do research. When your doctor tells you something, we're not saying that he's wrong or she's right or whatever the case is, but go home and study before you, especially before you go under the knife and have surgery. There might be other ways to combat the issue. There might not, and you'll end up going in and getting your gallbladder removed. But just know that when getting your gallbladder removed, you're taking out the filter that takes the bile that drips out of your liver area, and it just now is running freely down into your intestines. That's what your gallbladder is there for, is kind of a filter for bile, which was the reason why it was having cancerous problems back there. The studies were showing that. Again, the studies have changed and said that's probably not as bad, and it's probably really minimal now, increase in cancer. But just know your facts before you go in. Even if they tell you it's routine, you can live without your gallbladder, maybe you shouldn't. Maybe you should. Maybe you need to find out and ask more questions, but that's the point. You find out more questions, you be your advocate, and you question your doctor. So that's our message today. Thanks.